and opened up like this very weird world of music written long before I was born that I found super interesting. And so my best friends and I, we just started learning these ancient songs and singing for people, usually unsolicited, from nursing.
What kind of fucking dudes are you hanging out with that were interested in doing this with you?
Well, one of them is basically my producer, a guy called Chuck Klausmeyer, who I went to high school with, produces my podcast. And we still write, we'll write unauthorized jingles for our sponsors and sing them in 4-part harmony. I'm not saying it's cool. I'm just saying it's a thing that I did when I was young, and I never really shook it. Because like way leads on to way.
Right,
and
so you knew how to sing.
I could carry it too.
So you had some experience singing, kind of.
Yeah.
And then you decided you were going to learn how to sing opera.
Well, what really happened was I decided that my toolbox wasn't going to let me work in the construction trades or do anything my pop could do. And he really was a magician, and I really took his advice seriously. So I wanted to be in entertainment. I didn't want to be in the opera. I wanted to be on TV, but I needed an agent. And I couldn't get an agent unless I had my Screen Actors Guild card. And I couldn't get my SAG card unless I had an agent. So I couldn't audition for things that I wanted to do unless I found a way around this weird tautology. And a friend of mine, a guy called Mike Gellert, told me, he said, hey, so there's the Screen Actors Guild. There, at the time, there was AFTRA, and I'm sure you were part of both.
Yeah.
The thing you didn't know about was AGMA. The American Guild of Musical Artists is a sister union to the Screen Actors Guild and to AFTRA, who have since combined. And the rule back then was if you could get into any of them, you could simply pay your dues to the other, and then you were in. So for me, it was easier to kind of fake my way into the opera than it was onto a sitcom. So my plan...
this is all diabolical.
Well,
it's a great plan. I mean, it's like that kind of strategic thinking is very valuable. You should be in the Navy or something.
Well, look, I was just trying to get a job.
I know, but it's clever.
Well, there's always a stage door, right? I mean, there's always a back way in.
Right.
And so I thought, I memorized the aria. I auditioned. I was stopped halfway through it by the musical director, a guy named Bill Yanutzi, who was like, Mr. Rowe, you have no idea what you're saying at all, do you?
Because you're saying the words wrong. You were just repeating the sounds.
I was singing it loud, and I was singing it like I understood what I was saying.
Right.
All I really understood was the repertory company was desperate for young men with low voices. I knew that. And so I kind of looked the part. So whatever, I got into it, and my plan was to do one production or one season. Like they would do 3 shows in a season. And I had some friends who were in the chorus, and I was just a chorus member. I'm just holding a spear and just singing along with the rest of the chorus. And my plan was to do 1 or 2 of those, get my card, and then buy my SAG card, and then go about the business of being a famous TV star, right? Simple. Well, the music was so much better than I imagined it might be. And like when you get up in the catwalks of like a real theater, I mean, you've done shows in these theaters. There's nothing magically different about them. But when there's a full orchestra playing the hell out of Verdi or Rachmaninoff, and you're looking down on this scene, and you're looking out at the audience, and the sound is just amazing. And the girls, so like there were 80 people, I guess, in the rep company, more or less. 45 women, 35 guys. 30 of the guys had zero interest in 100% of the women, and of the remaining 5 straight dudes, 3 were married, and the only other single guy had a mole the size of your thumb on his eyelid with thick black hair like growing out of it. It was just, I was really the only straight dude.
You were the belle of the ball.
And I'm dressed like a Viking or a pirate. And I'm going on stage, and I'm a fake. I mean, I admit it. I barely learned the language enough to kind of keep up, and people in the chorus took pity on me, you know, and it was a world, really. It was a world that I didn't know existed, and once I saw it, I didn't fall in love with it, but I fell in love with the idea that there were worlds out there that I didn't know anything about and that were maybe more interesting than I thought. And so I stayed for 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I never got out of the chorus. I never had like a featured role. I had a couple lines here and there. But the Baltimore Opera was a big deal looking back at it. And that was, for me, 83 to 90.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, Christ, since we're talking, well, it was a Sunday. And during the intermission of something, I think it was Der Ring des Nibelungen, this giant Wagner, epic, torturous thing. And the chorus didn't have to be, this is the one, you saw it on Bugs Bunny. Killed a wabbit, killed a wabbit. It's that one, right?
Right.
So there's an intermission, and I'm not needed on stage for like 40 minutes after the intermission. So I go across the street to the Mount Royal Tavern to drink a beer and watch the football game, dressed as a Viking, which I recommend, by the way. When you walk in a bar with the horns and the spear, the bartender knew me. Everybody laughed, and I sat down. But the game wasn't on. The bartender was watching a fat guy in a shiny suit selling pots and pans, and it was the early days of the QVC cable shopping channel. I'm like, Rick, why are we watching this? And he says, because I'm auditioning for that guy's job tomorrow morning. QVC was doing a national talent search. Anyway, we had a conversation about the end of Western civilization and what it meant for polite society to have a 24-hour infomercial that just never went away, and whether or not, you know, there was any honor at all in auditioning for such a thing. And at that point, I thought it'd be great to have some money, you know. I hadn't had any before, and I'm sitting there drinking this beer dressed as a Viking thinking I could probably do that job if I had to. So I went with him the next day and auditioned and got hired.
Wow. Was he mad?
The bartender?
Yeah. That you got the gig?
You know,
Because you didn't even know about it.
Well, it's a good question. I don't know what became of him. We had a friendly.
Probably got a fucking voodoo doll of Mike Rowe. Got a bunch of pins in it.
We had a wager. I said, look, I don't know if I'll get the job, but I bet I'll get a call back. He's like, you're not going to get a call back for this thing. You know, we were just actors at the time. We're like people pretending to be actors, trying to find
work.
Hater. You know, he was nice enough. He sang in the opera with me too. Actually, he also attended bar. He just wasn't in that one. But yeah, it was a very strange thing, man. That was my first job in TV. Look, I've done some minor local commercial stuff, but I talked about a pencil for 8 minutes. That was the audition. It was so strange in those days. They didn't have there's no playbook to see who can sell stuff on TV, you know?
Do you have a script, or are you kind of like you have this facts about the pencil?
No,
nothing?
Nothing. Here's what happens. It's probably changed today. I think QVC did $8 billion last year. Back in 1989, 1990, it was nothing like that. And if they hired a salesman, that didn't mean you had anybody who understood really how to behave on TV. And if you hired a TV person, that didn't really mean you...
Look at you.
Oh, Jesus. That's the cat sack right there, dude. That's a sack for your cat.
What are you selling? Let me hear this. A sack for your cat. What the fuck?
It's just crazy. They just love it. That's why this is a cat toy.
So the cats play with it?
Yeah, they crawl inside it.
And they just go nutty because it makes a lot of noise?
Costs $25.
That's $25?
Yeah.
So this is like sort of just personality, fucking around, having fun with the toy and selling it.
Well, that's what I did. Remember.
That's what you did. Was that novel that you were doing it that way?
Yeah. Yeah, in relative terms, like that was actually one of the true great life lessons. You know, you don't have to be outrageous to stand out. You just have to be relatively outrageous. So QVC was a steady diet of men and women doing the same exact thing all the time.
Right.
And then at midnight or 3 a.m., I showed up and put a cat bag over my head or busted open a lava lamp.
So you were like a morning DJ.
Kind of, except...
Right, because they're kind of fun, and that was different than the regular radio guy.
You know, for me, I thought of it more like my favorite comedians. And by the way, I saw one last night. Thank you. Ron White was over at the Mothership.
He's there tonight, too.
I stopped by last night.
Are you around tonight?
No, I got to get back tonight. Something about Thanksgiving. But I watched his set last night.
He's awesome.
He was great. And the thing
he's never been funnier. He's in top form right now. It's
and
amazing.
He's gone full Messiah, dude. I didn't recognize him.
Oh, with the look? Yeah.
He said hello, and I'm like, hey, how are you? I mean, you're back. Jesus, good to see you. He was great. And as I watched him do his thing, it reminded me, like my favorite comedians, I never get the sense that they're trying to make me laugh. I get the sense that they're trying to amuse themselves.
Right.
And that's what makes it comfortable for me to be in the audience, to see somebody who, you know, hey, if I laugh, that's just a happy symptom of whatever it is you're going to do anyway. It makes me comfortable, and that's why he's fun to watch. You know, that's why this podcast is fun to listen to. Same reason. I couldn't have articulated that 35 years ago, sitting there selling a cat sack.
But you intuitively knew something.
I knew in the middle of everything that it turned out that I needed to know about this crazy business, I learned in the middle of the night on the QVC cable shopping channel over a 3-year period, trying to make sense. So 3 hours at a time, usually, over the course of 24 hours. So
you would be on 3 hours at a time?
Yeah.
Would you come back again, or would you only do 3 hours?
I do 3 hours, and I go home, and, I mean, have you done overnights before?
No.
So I guarantee you there are a lot of people listening who have worked an overnight shift in their trade, in their vocation.
Mm-hmm.
It changes you. Just as surely as Doris the cat lady's brain was scrambled by the Gandhi eye and the toxo. It does something.
Your circadian rhythm. Yeah.
It's not just that. It is that, but it's something primal, even more primal than that. It just messes with you, and it forces you. For me, it like changed colors. It changed taste. It changed. Yeah, because I'd never. I mean, I was upside down. After I talked about a pencil for 8 minutes, I was on the air 48 hours later at 3 in the morning trying to make sense of the health team infrared pain reliever and the Amcor negative ion generator. Like, what the hell?
Did they give you a rundown of what these products were at all?
It was up to you. If you came in a couple hours early and you took the time to look through, like there was a table like this with all of the stuff on it that you were going to be selling, and you could take the time to prepare.
But there was no Google back then. It's not like you could just watch a YouTube video that would explain what this thing did.
No, what you got was a blue card, usually from the manufacturer, that said a couple of sentences about what the thing was. You had an item number, you had the price, the retail price, the QVC price, and maybe some easy payment terms, all the stuff, right? But it was just a blue card. And then you would kind of go off and think about how you would make sense out of this skull and where it came from and why it's interesting. And it's feature benefit selling, you know, and if you understand that, you can talk about anything for as long as you need to. You know, you never talk about a feature without talking about its benefit. And so that's kind of how that world worked. So you don't say it's a pencil for 99 cents. You say it's a yellow number 2 pencil with an eraser that is of the exact proportion necessary to last for the life of the pencil. So when this thing is down to a nub, you'll still have enough eraser left. It's really a monument to efficiency and ingenuity. And it's not just yellow. It's yellow because you're a busy professional. And when you need a pencil, Joe, when you open up your drawer, you don't have time to root around for some vaguely beige-colored writing implement. You want that canary yellow to pop, and you can pick it up, right? And it's a number 2 pencil. It's not 3 with that thin, wispy line that you can't read, or that thick, disappointing skid mark of a number 1, right? So you just like train yourself to fill dead air with nonsense
while you're fucking up your circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
Wow.
While you're wondering, like, when your next meal is and who you're going to have it with. And you wind up making friends and essentially hanging with other people who live in that same weird, like, Shadowland.
Yeah, Shadowland. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I have kind of an experience with overnight, but it's not the same. I delivered newspapers. And so at least one day a week on Sunday, I would basically show up Saturday night at 3 in the morning.
Right.
Because I would deliver Sunday papers, and the Sunday papers it was a huge you could flip the top.
Oh, I forgot to flip
the top, and then hit the button. There you go. Hit it again. There you go. And so I was all fucked up from that. I would get up every day at 5 o'clock in the morning, normally to deliver papers because I had a large route.
Yeah.
It was my way to make money without having to do a job where I had to listen to anybody.
It's also a perfect example of a kind of job where you always know how you're doing while you're doing it. Like lots and lots of little visual, undeniable cues, right? You got your bags or your baskets full of paper or your car or whatever you were doing. You're tossing them out one at a time.
Yep.
You know, you're making progress. You know the progress you're making as you make it.
Right.
You know, it's...
You know you only have 120 houses to go.
That's right. And then it's 110. And then it's like...
People always go to Dunkin' Donuts, get yourself a nice donut and a coffee, reward yourself, day's over. Yeah. My day would be done work-wise by, 8 a.m., 9 a.m. on a Sunday. 9 was rough.
Yeah.
Occasionally, they would make enormous Sunday papers. And that would be a real problem because you'd have to make multiple trips. Then I bought a van, so I had a big cargo van, and I drove that around to deliver newspapers for a while. That made it a lot easier because I could stack 350 Sunday papers in the back of that van.
But see, you remember and you knew. 350, that's an interesting number.
I had bigger routes, but 350 was manageable.
How old were you?
I started when I was just driving, so I was in high school still, so I think I started delivering papers when I was 17 or 18, whatever legal age they allow you to do it.
Yeah.
So it was probably 17 or 18. I started driving, and I drove till I was 22. I just started doing stand-up comedy. I drove all throughout my competitive martial arts career. I drove in the morning. It was good because it gave me discipline. Because I had to do it 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You did not take any days off. It didn't matter if it snowed or rained or fucking frozen rain on the streets, black ice. Didn't matter. You got to deliver newspapers. And if they did delay it, it would delay your delivery of the paper. So you'd have to call the depot. Hey, are we delivering yet? Because they didn't want to be responsible if it was a blizzard for people dying and get lawsuits. So they didn't make you deliver papers if it was unbelievably bad out. But for the most part, you drove every day.
So you had a sense of consequence too.
Yes.
Like you
discipline, consequence.
Yeah.
You didn't deliver the papers. You didn't get paid. It was very simple. It was a very simple job. You would show. I don't even remember how they trained us. I think that maybe they trained us for like one day. You were taught how to fold the paper. 1, 2, stuff it in the bag. You had plastic bags were great because you could chuck them out the window and it never damaged the paper. Rubber bands were a real pain in the ass because you could hit a corner on the concrete, it would rip the corner of the paper, and then the customer would complain because they're trying to read about what's going on in Syria, and then there's this fucking broken piece of paper. I delivered the New York Times only because it was cool. Like I delivered the Boston Globe because that was the biggest distribution. Like I could get the biggest route. And then the Boston Herald because I wanted more papers to deliver, so I would do 2 papers. And then the New York Times The New York Times is a pain in the ass because it would be like one every 10 blocks. You'd have an enormous route. If you had 150 New York Times, that's an all-day excursion.
Did you start to equate the type of home you were delivering, the type of paper to?
Oh, yes. The New York Times people took themselves very seriously. They were very serious people. They would ask me what I'm doing with my life. I remember this lady, I was taking courses at Boston University just so people wouldn't think I was a loser. That was literally the only reason why I was going to college. And she's asking me, I was like, what are you planning on doing with your career? I'm like, I have no idea. Like, and she didn't